Okay, everybody. So we are going to talk about the second part of the writing process. And again, I'm kind of breaking these steps down a little smaller than we traditionally would, where we say like pre-writing is kind of one stage. We're looking at pre-writing during a number of different stages here. And just kind of mapping and getting ideas out. That version of pre-writing is really important. We talked about that yesterday. Today we're talking about actually coming down and selecting a topic. And so I'll kind of run through some topics that I think traditionally don't work, and we'll talk about why they don't work. And then we'll talk about maybe some topic ideas that do work, and how we want to incorporate things. So remember, we want to keep our objectives in mind when we're picking a topic. And one of the things that we want to do is create a story that has a clear beginning, middle, and end. We want to create a story that has a purpose, right? So be thinking about what was Sherman Alexie's purpose in writing? What was Malcolm X's purpose in writing? And every time we read a new story, what's their purpose? We want to think about our audience, right? So, is this a story to your peers? Is it a story to a younger group of people, right? Those are always good questions to ask. And we'll kind of think a little bit more about audience as we move through. And that's going to help us to shape. So when we get to outlining, which we're going to do a little later this week, we can be shaping the writing, right? And then if we do these things, if we start to have some shape and we start to know the next step that we're going to have, it's going to help us to prevent writer's block. It's going to help us to move fluidly so that we're not stuck at part after part after part. So topic selection is one of those things that's very important because of course it's what I'm going to write about. But it's also one of those things that can get really daunting, right? So it can stop you before you start because you might not like your topic, or you might not know what to pick, or you might not know what to kind of keep in mind. So let's talk about some story ideas that I've had in the past that were pitched to me that I didn't think were going to work, and we'll look at why they wouldn't necessarily work to begin with, and then what we might want to do to change them. So one of my favorite ones to kind of deny is a story about moving. There's conflict inside of moving, which is good because I don't know anyone who likes to move. But the action of moving is very boring, right? It's repetitive. There's not a lot going on. And if you are bored by the action of moving, then you're going to be bored reading about moving, right? So moving isn't necessarily a good one. However, if you had to move at a point in your life and you had to like separate from a really good friend, then making the story about your last days together, showing that relationship, showing the conflict of having to leave this person, that's a good story, right? There can be purpose to that. The value of friendship is a great purpose or theme to a story. The loss that we have to get over, that we can't keep everyone that's close to us in our life forever, is an important thing that we learn. I think at an early age, especially if you move around a lot, and coping with loss is something that's powerful. So, again, I kind of think about moving, not very good. The story of losing somebody is a strong one, right? Um, Another one that I think about is the accident story. I did a thing, I got into a bike accident, I broke my leg. Um, that story seems like a story. It's got some action in it, it's got some conflict in it, but it's basically you hurting yourself and then somebody else doing something about it. And so, if you want to talk about, I broke my leg, and then the conflict later on was that it caused me to not be able to get into, a fall sport, or, it ruined your season, or, those types of things where you're dealing with teammates and maybe some resentment that happens because you're not on the team anymore, or it deals with a complication that's now adjusted your life. If it's a major injury, right, your whole life has been turned upside down. You have to talk to people differently. That would be one thing, right? But I fell off my handlebars, I broke my teeth, and I was in the hospital for a day. That's not really a story, right? Especially because you don't have a lot of agency during that time, right? And what would be the purpose of telling that story? Don't ride your bike? Well, no one's going to do that, right? We're all going to continue to ride our bikes. So, kind of thinking about the value of the theme, right? The loss of friendship, the power of friendship, much stronger than don't mess around on your bike. Um, Other stories that typically kind of don't work, um, like video games, kind of don't work, right? Especially because typically when you're playing a game, you are by yourself, right? However, if you've created this really strong network of online friends and you talk about, the accomplishments that you've had together and you make it about the friendship, right? Then you might have a story. Now if you do that, you're going to spend more time talking about the schedule that you guys make to make sure that you're playing together and the value of talking to somebody every day. Maybe how important that was during COVID, as opposed to we beat this level, right? That's not, I understand why people want to write about that. Seems like there's a lot of action there. The story's been made for you, right? The video game's been made for you. You're just playing through it. However, at the end of the day, it's not your story, right? What's the purpose? I don't know what the purpose of playing video games is. However, well, I do know the purpose. It's to constructively waste your time. That's what it is. We can all admit that. However, if it's creating these friendships, right, then we're in a different place, and it's really about that, right? So we want to think about redirects. We want to think about what is my story really about? What's the value that I want to pull out of this? And you want to be able to check off at the end of picking a topic. Yes, it's got a clear beginning, middle, and end. Yes, it has another person that I am talking to that's a part of this story. And yes, it has a purpose and it has an audience, right? I'm speaking to a specific group of people. And if you can pick a topic that has those things, then you're going to be moving pretty constructively. Final thing, if you get blocked coming up with topics, then you've got to talk to me. We're going to talk no matter what, but you got to be on my radar if you're really struggling with coming up with a topic idea, or if you're struggling narrowing down to one or two. Especially because of our tight timeline, I'm going to be saying to you, like, we got to make decisions, right? This is also probably one of the reasons that you struggle with writing. If you struggle with writing, is you're just not making decisions. You're kind of sitting in the haze of it all. And the best thing you can do as a writer is just to get started writing, and then let the other stuff work itself out a little bit. So we got to pick that topic idea, and if you're struggling with that, then I got to know about it.